My name is Justin. I do want to thank Corin and the Center for Grad Life for having me. And we're here today to talk a little bit about speed reading. So I realize that research would suggest that you have formed your opinion of a speaker within the first 5 minutes and also decided whether or not you should listen to them. So with that being said, why in the world should you listen to me? Well, for a few reasons. As Corin mentioned, I was a grad student as well, a fellow 49er as well, so I was in the counseling program. And in grad school, I realize every program is different, but typically there is a large deal of reading that comes along with being a grad student. And so where time is usually limited and required reading is abundant, it's nice to know at least a few strategies and a few effective ways to get that done more efficiently. And that's something that really sparked my interest in speed reading. How can I do this? How can I at least increase my reading time a little bit to save myself some time as a student? So I do have some experience in that from being a grad student here on this very campus. Also, in teaching this workshop, it's been pretty neat because I will run into students that attended the workshop after the fact, and they'll let me know, hey, I tried this is working out for me, or I tried this and this isn't really working out for me. All right. So as far as my goals for today, basically I want to talk about ways that you can discover your current reading speed, and I'll actually have you guys do a few activities here tonight, and you will get a general idea of your current reading speed, because we want to have a baseline measure to see about where you're starting out, and that way we can see if any of the new techniques, especially once you practice them, have increased your speed at all. So we'll talk about your current reading speed. We'll talk about a few things that can slow us down as readers. Half the battle is eliminating a lot of the things that can slow you down while you're reading and trying to spot those things out ahead of time. So we'll talk about some of those. And then what you really probably envisioned in your mind when you came to this, we will talk about two of the more popular speed reading techniques. I kind of take the buffet approach. I'll lay out everything I have and let you pick and choose what works for you. So we'll actually talk about two of the more popular styles, and you can see which may work for you, because we'll try them out tonight. Also, in saving time, it'll allow you to accomplish more in between classes, hopefully take advantage of some of the small or unexpected breaks that you have in the day, as far as if you're waiting. If you have a break in between classes, you're waiting for an oil change, all of life's little breaks. Hopefully it can help you fit in some more reading in that time as well. And also, by getting reading accomplished sooner, hopefully you're less fatigued. Maybe your eyes or mentally, you're less fatigued once you have completed your reading as well. So that can be an added benefit. All right. One thing I will say is I do want to preface the workshop by saying this is an introduction. If in an hour and a half I could take all of you and turn you into expert speed readers, I would be a millionaire right now. Probably out on some yacht. That's the way I picture it in my mind anyway. So please know, this is an introduction. I want to give you a very core, basic foundation of some of the two most popular speed reading techniques. And then it's up to you guys to go out, see which one you like. You can even try them both, and to practice those. It does take practice, but in practicing, I think you really can pick these up and hopefully save yourself some time. All right, so moving on, as promised, I want us to start by discovering your current reading speed. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. So if you guys will look at the slide, it says, what is your current reading speed? I probably have some folks in here that love math, and I probably have some folks in here that say, oh no, he's going to talk about math. But please know, I'm going to make this part easy on you. You really don't even have to understand the formula if you don't want to, as long as we can make sure that we can calculate your current reading speed. And I've made this very easy on you. So if you ever wanted to do this on your own, all you would need to do is you want to first start by finding the average words per page on whatever you're reading. So I would suggest taking something that you read a lot for your class, whether it's a research journal or a certain magazine or your current textbook for your course. And you want to count the number of words on 3 average lines. All right? And again, I'm going to help you with this. Don't freak out. I've already actually done the work for you for the example we're going to do. So you count the total number of words on 3 average lines, and then you find the, let's see here, number of lines on the average page, and you multiply the average words per line by the number of lines on an average page. All right. A lot of these things may be some things that are part of your routine. So keep that in mind. And it doesn't mean anything bad necessarily. These are habits that most of us have, at least a few of them, and we may not be aware of how they're currently slowing our reading speed. All right? Failure to preview would be the first. Okay? By having an idea of what to expect, you can increase your speed and comprehension. So think about it with the laundry example we just did. If you weren't really sure the first time, it's a little bit harder to move through that passage and really comprehend what was going on. But once I'd given you a preview, I told you at least a general idea of what it was about, then I would imagine you were able to move through it a little bit faster and retain a little more of what was being discussed. Okay? So, there are a lot of different ways to preview. I'll give you some general ideas of how you may want to preview various types of reading. So a nonfiction book. It's usually good to look at the outside, the front and the back. All right. Read the front matter, so the introduction or the foreword. Go over the table of contents, so let you know what to expect. And briefly thumb through the book, examining the format, how most pages generally flow. Okay? Previewing a chapter. This is probably a little more relevant to many of you in your current textbooks. I realize every class is different, but if you were doing assigned reading and you get assigned chapter 12 to read tonight, for example, this is how you could preview. You want to look at the title of the chapter, read the first and last paragraph, read any kind of additional summary that may be at the end, if that is offered. Look over the study questions or review questions, if there are any offered at the end. And then quickly thumb through the chapter, looking at how the pages flow and looking at any of the bold subheadings. Okay? Previewing a journal article. You want to look at the title, author, publication date, discover the purpose of the article, so we want to read the abstract, and then skim the article again to examine the subheadings. Okay? So I know you may be sitting there saying, well, Justin, I thought you were going to tell me some things to save time, and you're actually giving me more stuff to do. Well, what we find is if you preview the material first, yes, it does take an additional minute or two up front, but then it saves you time moving forward, and you actually retain the information much easier because, again, your brain is primed and ready to store that information. Okay? So failure to preview is one thing that slows our reading speed. Also, wasted eye movement. This is something a lot of us may not think too much about when we're reading. Okay? Studies have shown that slower readers move their eyes more often, which is kind of interesting. So, we want to minimize regressions. Regressions are when we're looking back up into what we've already read. Okay? So one thing, if you notice that you do this quite a bit, you have a habit of reading a little bit, looking back up, reading a little bit, looking back up. One thing that the studies have shown that can help with that is just sliding a paper down as you read. Okay? And then getting to the very bottom of the page, and then if you have a question, going back up and looking at the material again. But that's something that can help you get in a much better rhythm if you tend to regress when you read there. All right. Also, minimize progressions. This is looking ahead of what you were reading. So, one thing that can help is previewing the material ahead of time so you aren't as tempted to do this. Then we have distractions. There are tons of distractions. It could be the heat in the room or it not being cool enough in the room, our outfit not being comfortable enough. But if we're really talking about setting our mind free, being focused enough to really get in the zone and move at a pretty quick pace, we want to be efficient. We want to eliminate distractions up front. All right. Earplugs can sometimes help as well. That's a pretty cheap investment that can be beneficial. Okay. Also, reading on a blank desk or table. This is something that we may not think too much about. So I'll show you. For example, this is a desk that's not that blank. Okay? So you can see you're trying to read and really get focused on that and retain that information. How your brain, without us really consciously being aware of it, is taking in all of this, particularly for my visual learners. So, look at that compared to that. See how much easier it is to get dialed in and to keep our attention on the words on the page there. So, again, simple things, but a lot of these things add up to really cost us time as readers. Other things that can slow our reading speed. Poor vision span. So what they have found is increasing your vision span can boost speed and comprehension. They have found that well-known speed readers, or folks that seem to master the art, take in more at a time in their vision span. Okay? One of the books that I read when researching this topic as a grad student, it said one way you can practice this is the next time that you watch TV, try to focus only on the middle of the screen without turning your head. As big as some of your TVs are these days, that may be a little challenging. I think this book was written before we really got into our 70-inch screens. But that is a practice exercise that can help. Okay? And one thing I'll say with that, if I can, and this really applies to some of the techniques that you will learn in a little while. If I can, I'll ask everyone to just cross your arms. Some of you guys have already done that, but all right, so just cross your arms. Now I will ask you to cross them with the other arm on top. Okay? So now let's with the other arm on top. Okay? What's that like?
Awkward.
Weird. Awkward. Does anybody want to switch back? Yes. Right? We go with what we know. We don't often like change. Some of us more than others. But a lot of the techniques that we're talking about today are going to give you that same kind of feeling. This isn't right. This feels weird. I don't know about this. I want to go back with what I'm comfortable with. However, I'll encourage you to fight that. What would happen if you crossed your arms the second way every day, starting today? What would eventually happen? You get used to it, right? So some of the techniques that we will talk about in a minute will be that way. And the same thing with increasing your vision span. It will feel a little strange at first, but if that's something that you really wanted to develop, eventually it will become more and more second nature to you. Other things that can slow our reading speed. Vocalization and sub-vocalization. So vocalization is just a fancy word for reading out loud. All right? Sub-vocalization, reading out loud in your head. That's kind of an interesting concept, but that is something that can actually slow our reading speed. What they have found is our brain can move across the information and process it much faster than we can say the words out loud or try to say them out loud in our head. And we'll talk more about that. Hopefully what I show you in a little bit will make a little more sense to you. All right? Some may say, well, if I don't read it out loud, I don't remember it. That's something that you will hear. That's a claim that's usually made in this regard. But think about the last time you went to the mall. That's the example that's given here. You didn't walk around saying pink sweater, blue jeans, new shoes, video games. Yet you were still able to tell your friend most of what caught your attention in the mall that day. So our brains can store the information without us actively having to call out everything that comes into view. Okay? So you have to trust the process. Other things that can slow our speed. Slow page turning. Who would have thought, right? But it's the simple things that add up and cost us time. Average person takes at least 4 seconds. All right? So, speed readers, this is something they get really good at. So as you near the bottom of the page, start reaching up without looking for the top corner and be ready to flip. That's something that can keep you moving along. All right? Other weaknesses, lipping, moving your tongue, moving your Adam's apple as you read. That's one of the books listed. I don't know that I've ever witnessed that, but figured we'd throw it in there. All right, so again, just to kind of recap we talked about a few simple things, and most of us are guilty of at least a few of those, a few simple things that can slow our reading speed. And so we want to think about those ahead of time, if we can. Whether it be previewing or regressing or not spotting out distractions, these can all add up to really cost us a lot of time. All right, so I'm going to start. I'm going to show you two different methods. And the first is the hand motion method. That's the first one that we will talk about, and you'll actually get a chance to try this out. So, in its simplest form, this is based on the principle that if you move your finger across the line quickly, your eyes will follow quickly. What you would do is when reading, you take the thumb on your right hand. For some of my left-handed folks, that might be a little uncomfortable, so you can modify if you need to. And you drag it across the top of the line that you are reading. Okay? And having your thumb above lets you see what's slightly ahead. We don't want to look too far, but having your thumb above lets you see what's coming up next. Okay? And you want to get into a rhythm. Just a nice, steady rhythm, almost like a typewriter. Okay? So, if we wanted to try this out, and we will, what you would do is you would preview the material first, just like we talked about earlier. Use the thumb on your right hand. Quickly drag across the top of each line that you are reading. You want to keep a nice, steady rhythm. And again, just like crossing your arms, it's going to feel awkward at first. And what I would challenge you to do is to move your hand faster than your normal reading speed. It's kind of like the lead car in the race. It's the pace car. And you're keeping a faster speed than you normally would, so your eyes are forced to keep up with that speed. Okay? So where we're just practicing it, we're just getting used to it. You don't want to go way overboard, but definitely try to push yourself a little bit and move it faster than you normally would. Okay? Your brain will tell you to slow down. Resist the urge. Okay? It's just like when we crossed our arms. It was saying, cross them back, cross them back. We want to resist the urge. Okay? We're going to try something new. All right. And if you miss something, keep going. That's what they really emphasize with this method. You get in that rhythm and you don't stop. You can stop at the end of the page if you need to go back. But for the sake of this exercise, if you miss something, keep going. Also, if you're reading familiar material, you can go a little faster. If I have some folks that are really into sports, for example, they're reading an article about sports in the newspaper, they can generally go a little faster than they would if they're reading a very dense article about neuroscience. So sometimes you can modify your hand speed. Now we're going to talk about the two-stop method. So this basically attempts to increase your speed by reducing the number of eye movements per line. Remember earlier when we talked about things that can slow our reading speed, a lot of eye movement. So this basically works to increase our speed by reducing the amount of times we move our eyes while reading. When we read, our eyes naturally move from side to side as we move down the page, and this wastes time. Okay? Although we are taught to read one word at a time, this is not the most efficient way. Just like I mentioned earlier, when you go in the mall, you're not calling out one item at a time when you're shopping, but your brain is taking it all in. So your brain is very capable. We just have to get out of the way sometimes. The goal is to only make 2 stops with your eyes per line. That's a good starting point for beginners that want to try this out. Do I have any snow skiers in here? Anybody snow ski? All right. Me too. Anybody snowboard? Yeah, I ripped the backside of my pants when I tried to snowboard, so I stick to skiing. But basically, with this method, you're going to move down the page like you're snow skiing. Okay? Anybody's watched a really good snow skier, it looks effortless. And they just bounce back and forth down the page. And you just want to make 2 stops. Okay? So, bad example. 1 word at a time. And it's not really fair to criticize us for that because that's how we all learn to read for the most part. But I was running extremely fast towards. All right? Good example. Taking in entire chunks at a time. Rather than 1 word at a time, you're taking in entire chunks of words. And this is going to speed you up significantly. Okay? So, again, even though your mouth cannot keep up, your brain can. Say this was a line that you're reading. You'd want your first stop to be where the asterisk is on the left side of the screen, and your second stop to be over here. Okay? So we're not going all the way to the end of each line. Your peripheral vision is going to take that in. So you don't have to go all the way to the end. You want to basically keep your eyes closer to the center of the line and move down the center of the passage that you're reading. Right? And so this one, the hand motion method is a little more simple. This one is one that throws folks for a loop when they first see it, because it's going to go against how we were taught to read. The TV, peripheral vision exercise that I mentioned earlier can help with this one. You eventually try to reach a point where your eyes don't move side to side at all, and you just coast down the middle of the page. If there is such a thing as a professional speed reader, at least the folks that are really good at this, they can just move down the center of a page, and their brain is taking in all of the information. We talked about a few things that can naturally slow our reading speed. So, failing to preview. Think about that the next time you get assigned a journal article or you have to read a chapter in your textbook tonight. Try reading the first paragraph, last paragraph, the review questions if there are any, because that way your brain is already primed and ready to at least have a general idea of what it's going to have to read. Okay? And then flipping through, looking at different subheadings. So you can start to categorize how you're going to store the information. All right? We want to eliminate distractions in the room, like other people, doors, temperature. Study or read on a blank desk or table. That can be helpful. All right? So we talked about some things that can distract us and naturally slow our speed. You had a chance to calculate your current reading speed. So the cool thing is you can go out and experiment now, because you have the formulas that you need in your handout to calculate your reading speed at any point, and with different types of material. So you could compare your current reading speed for a journal article to a page in your history book, or whatever it may be. All right? And then we talked about two of the more popular methods, and that would be the hand motion method. Drag our thumb in a nice rhythm across the page, and we want to stretch ourselves, try to be a little faster than our normal reading speed. And then the two-stop method, basically snow skiing down the central portion of the page, trying to make only 2 stops per line and taking in chunks of words rather than just one word at a time. Okay? And as it mentions here, remember that this, like anything else in life, I know a lot of times we want the instant fix or the instant gratification, but it does take practice. But it's something that can usually be picked up in a hurry. And it can be gradual too. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You go to bed tonight, you're not a speed reader, you wake up tomorrow, you are a speed reader. It doesn't usually work that way. But you just want to continue to practice and occasionally test your reading speed again. See if you're getting better. And even if you improve by 50 words per minute each time that you do that, that's progress. And that's still going to save you some time, which I know is very valuable to many of you at this point. Right? Peripheral vision exercises can help. Some folks tell me those give me a headache, Justin. I'm not doing that. And that's fine too. And as we mentioned earlier, you do want to be a little cautious, especially in the beginning, using speed reading to study for exams. Exams are a time where you're going to be tested on details. You want to slow it down. But when doing a brief overview or reading back over your chapter or reading something that you're not necessarily going to be tested on, you just need to have a general understanding, that's a great time to try this. So be cautious when choosing when to use your new power here. I certainly enjoyed it. Wish you all the best of luck in your graduate studies as well. So thank you.